Hello everyone. So let us try and understand free radicals and antioxidants. So first, what are free radicals? Okay. Free radicals are nothing but if you look at an atom, so if you look at the outer if you look out the outermost orbit, okay, normally there are paired electrons. Okay, so when this paired electron becomes unpaired, it is known as free radical. Okay, so presence of one or more unpaired electron in the outermost orbit is what free radicals are. Okay, so which free radicals are important in medicine? Okay, so we have a whole list. Okay, so mainly they are all uh, classified together as reactive oxygen species. Okay, so they can be superoxide anion radical, hydroxy peroxy radical, hydrogen peroxide, hydroxyl radical, lipid peroxide radical, singlet oxygen, nitric oxide, or peroxynitride. So these are the common free radicals which cause damage uh, in medicine and cause various diseases. Okay, so they're commonly called reactive oxygen species. Okay, so because they all come from oxygen, so they are all represented by a dot. The free radical is represented by a dot over here, as you can see. Okay, like a superoxide anion, it is represented by a dot. They all are highly reactive, and that is what makes them dangerous, but they also have a very short life. So let's look at the damages which are done by the free radical. Okay, what are the target sites which these free radicals they attack? Okay, so these free radicals they attack the lipids, proteins, carbohydrates, and DNA. Okay, so lipids, mainly the lipid which is present in the biomembrane. Okay, so we know that the lipid which is present in the biomembrane is, you know, phospholipids which contain polyunsaturated fatty acids. Now these polyunsaturated fatty acids they undergo lipid peroxidation. Okay, so the free radicals they attack these PUFA or polyunsaturated fatty acid and they alter the membrane permeability. Okay, they lead to formation of dialdehydes, and these dialdehydes can directly attack the nucleic acid and cause breaks in the DNA strand or even mutation. Then they can attack various proteins. Okay, when they attack proteins they modify the amino acids. Okay, so when the proteins become modified, they become non-self antigen. Okay, so the body does not recognize these new modified proteins because of action by free radicals. So these proteins are considered as foreign by the body, and the body starts to attack these proteins, and this results in a whole set of autoimmune disorders. Then free radicals also attack the carbohydrates. Okay, so the carbohydrates basically causes increased glycation of proteins. Okay, so there occurs increased glycation or the carbohydrate attaches to the proteins. Now when this occurs again, the proteins become more susceptible to free radical damage. Okay, so whenever there is increased glycation of proteins, so these proteins then they become more susceptible to free radical damage. Okay, so the free radicals they cause glycation of proteins and ultimately they become susceptible to free radical damage again. It can affect the DNA, okay, and it can cause breaks in the DNA strand, or it can cause mutations. Okay, so these are the various target sites, important target sites which are attacked by the free radicals. Now, what are the sources of free radicals or reactive oxygen species? Okay, so let us see and try to understand these sources. The first is a lipid peroxidation. Okay, so we discussed that this is the lipid bimembrane. Okay, phospholipid bimembrane. So this phospholipid consists of polyunsaturated fatty acid. Now, lipid peroxidation occurs is when this polyunsaturated fatty acid is attacked by a hydroxyl free radical. So then it is known as lipid peroxidation. Okay. Similarly, so this becomes an important source of free radical, which we will see. Next is in the electron transport chain in the mitochondria itself. The mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell because it produces ATPs, the energy which is required by our body. But this electron transport chain is again a potential source for generation of reactive oxygen species. Okay, it becomes a seat for production of free radicals. Then the macrophages. Okay, so these macrophages or neutrophils, which act as body's defense system. Okay, there occurs increased production of H2O2 or hydrogen peroxide and superoxide anions. Okay, so which is known as respiratory burst. Okay, so these polymorpho neutrophils or macrophages, they utilize oxygen, okay, and results in the formation of superoxide anions and hydrogen peroxide. And the various enzyme are mainly the NADPH oxidases, which are present in the neutrophils and activated more macrophages. Similarly, we also have xanthine oxidases, which also results in the formation of hydrogen peroxide and superoxide anions. And similarly, we have is another set of enzymes, cytochrome oxidases, okay, which is required for metabolism of drugs. So as the drug is metabolized, also the free radicals also is generated. Okay. Then when in case of peroxisomes, the peroxisomes, when they cause or they undergo the beta oxidation of long chain fatty acid occurs in the peroxisome. This again is a potential source for generation of free radicals. Similarly, we have various transition metals like iron, cobalt, copper, nickel. So these transition metals, they react with oxygen and lead to formation of hydroxyl free radical. So this hydroxyl free radical again can damage the membranes. Okay. Similarly, ionizing radiation also leads to production of hydroxyl free radicals. Apart from then, we have is the pollution in the environment, smoking, alcohol. So all these are various potential causes of generation of reactive oxygen species. Okay, so the reactive oxygen species can be generated in our body from normal physiological process like the electron transport chain to our habits like alcohol and smoking. So let us look at the various important processes by which the reactive oxygen species are generated. First is the electron transport chain. Now we know that the electron transport chain, okay, is present in the mitochondria. Okay, so in the mitochondria, the oxygen is utilized and is converted to water. So oxygen is converted to water with the help of 4 electrons. Okay, so in the complex 4, okay, so this is the electron transport chain, complex 1, 2, 3, 4, present in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Okay, so this is the intermembranous space. Okay, this is the matrix, this is the cytoplasm, this is the outer membrane, this is the inner membrane of the mitochondria. So on the inner mitochondrial membrane, we have is the electron transport chain complex 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so as the electron is transported from complex 1 to complex 4. Okay, so 4 electrons, 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 electrons, they combine with oxygen and it is converted to water. So this is a normal process. Okay, now sometimes what happens is these electrons, instead of combining with water, combining with oxygen and forming water, these electrons, they leak. Okay, so when they leak, or then it can lead to formation of various reactive oxygen species. Okay, most commonly the superoxide anion, leading to formation of hydrogen peroxide, hydroxyperoxy radical, or hydroxyl radical itself. Okay, so this is how the normal process of electron transport chain. If it does not go normally, a slight variation can occur, and the electron, instead of getting transported to oxygen to form water, leakage occurs and leads to formation of free radicals like superoxide anion, etc. Okay. Next, let us look at lipid peroxidation. So how lipid peroxidation leads to formation of reactive oxygen species. Now lipid peroxidation is a type of chain reaction, okay, which is initiated by free radicals. Now first let us try to understand what is the lipid membrane, how it is made up of. Okay, so polyunsaturated fatty acid is present in the cell membrane. Okay, so this is the lipid bilayer, phospholipid bilayer. So the phospholipid consists of the phosphate group, choline, glycerol, and we have the polyunsaturated fatty acid or PUFA, which is present in the tail or in the hydrophobic region. So when this PUFA is acted upon by, so the PUFA is acted upon by hydroxyl free radical, it leads to generation of a PUFA radical. Okay, so the hydrogen is removed and it leads to generation of a PUFA radical. Now this is where the initiation of lipid peroxidation takes place. Okay, so lipid peroxidation is nothing else but action of hydroxyl free radical on polyunsaturated fatty acid, leading to formation of a PUFA radical. Okay. So this PUFA radical, okay, so this is RH is the PUFA. So this PUFA reacts with the hydroxyl radical, okay, to form as PUFA radical. So this PUFA radical again reacts with oxygen to form as lipid peroxide. Okay, so this lipid peroxide again reacts with the lipid itself or the PUFA to form as again a lipid free radical or a PUFA free radical. Okay, so this becomes the propagation part. Then again leads to generation of a lipid peroxy radical. This lipid peroxy radical can react with another PUFA to form as a PUFA radical. So PUFA radical can again react with oxygen to form as lipid peroxy radical. So this initiation and propagation, again it becomes a loop. Okay, so this becomes a chain reaction. So when does this chain reaction is terminated? This chain reaction is terminated when the lipid peroxy radical combines with another lipid peroxy radical or a PUFA radical combines with another PUFA radical. So the unpaired electron becomes paired. Then the termination of lipid peroxidation takes place. Okay, so this lipid peroxidation is a chain reaction which is initiated by action of hydroxyl radical on PUFA, and it gets terminated when the lipid free radical or the lipid peroxy radical is saturated, okay, or gets oxidized. Next, let us look at respiratory burst. What happens inside the neutrophils, inside the macrophages? Okay, so inside the neutrophils or the macrophages, large amount of oxygen is consumed by these macrophages and neutrophils for bactericidal action, to break down the bacteria or kill the bacteria. So it is called respiratory burst. A large amount of oxygen is used. So the enzyme which is present in these macrophages and neutrophils are NADPH oxidase. So this NADPH oxidase converts this oxygen into superoxide anion, and it utilizes NADPH, which gets reduced to NADP. So NADPH oxidases utilizes NADPH. Now this NADPH is generated by HMP shunt, okay, where you have is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme, okay, which is the rate limiting enzyme. So HMP shunt gives us the NADPH, which NADPH is utilized by the NADPH oxidase, and it converts molecular oxygen to superoxide anion. Now this superoxide anion is acted upon by superoxide dismutase to form as hydrogen peroxide. Now this hydrogen peroxide is acted upon by myeloperoxidase, and with the help of halogens like chloride, it forms as hypochlorous acid. Now this hypochlorous acid is what kills the bacteria within the neutrophils. So this is how neutrophils and macrophages, they kill the bacteria. So they use the oxygen, they use NADPH oxidase enzyme, they use NADPH and form superoxide anion, which is a free radical, which ultimately leads to formation of hypochlorous acid, which kills the bacteria. And also superoxide anion can also directly kill the bacteria. So this is one of the beneficial effects of free radicals. Okay. Now let us look at transition metals. Okay, so transition metals like iron, okay, in the free form it can form hydroxyl free radical. So iron reacts with hydrogen peroxide to form as hydroxyl free radical. This is known as Fenton reaction. Similarly, we have is Haber-Bosch reaction in which superoxide anion reacts with hydrogen peroxide to again form his hydroxyl radical. Now apart from iron, you can also have other transition metals like copper, nickel and cobalt. Okay, so if this free form of iron is not there, then the generation of free radical also is limited. So in case of iron, when it combines with transferrin, or in case of copper, when it combines with ceruloplasmin, so they act as antioxidants. Okay, so that we will see again later. Now let us look at the few important diseases which are associated with free radical damage or oxidative stress. So oxidative stress basically is a condition in which the production of free radical increases more than normal, and which leads to various damages in the system and disorders. Okay, so important diseases which occurs because of free radical damage or oxidative stress is, the first and foremost is atherosclerosis. Okay, so we know atherosclerosis is a block in the coronary arteries or peripheral vascular disease due to formation of atheroma. Okay, now this atheroma is made up of the LDL particles which get deposited. Now it is the oxidized LDL particles, okay, which form atheroma. So LDL undergoes oxidative stress, or LDL is acted upon or targeted by the free radicals and forms oxidized LDL. This oxidized LDL leads to formation of atheroma. So this atheroma is a component of atherosclerosis which causes obstruction of the blood vessels. Similarly, in case of rheumatoid arthritis, which is a joint pain, okay, so you have painful joints, so there occurs chronic inflammation. This chronic inflammation is because of excess of neutrophils which are there. Okay, and these neutrophils again they produce free radicals which causes damage. Various lung diseases, this can again occur because of increased amount of neutrophils. So increased neutrophils are there, increased production of free radicals occur which can lead to damage. Also, when there is, if smoking, if the person smokes, again leads to production of increased free radicals. If if the person is consuming, is hospitalized or is having 100% oxygen given to him, then again it can lead to generation of reactive oxygen species and damage the lung. Okay, so the normal air which we breathe contains only about 21% of oxygen. So if the person is oxidized, has been given supplemental oxygens, so that oxygen which the patient is being given is having 100% or is pure oxygen. So this pure oxygen, if it is prolonged therapy, then it can lead to development of reactive oxygen species and can itself damage the lungs. And similarly, we have air pollution which consists of numerous free radicals and which can cause lung diseases. Next we have is diabetes. In diabetes again we have increased glycation of proteins because the glucose levels are increased. The patient is having hyperglycemia, so that glucose levels they attach to the proteins which is called glycation of proteins. So these glycated proteins again become a target for damage by free radicals. Then we have cataract. In cataract we have increased oxidative stress in the lens, so that lens then it becomes opaque. Male infertility, the sperm motility and mobility is decreased. Okay, the viability of sperm also is reduced because of increased oxidative stress. Then as we age, the body's ability to remove the free radicals is decreased. The free radicals which are produced is increased slowly, so we have more reactive oxygen species damage, mitochondrial membrane damage. Okay, so there is leakage of reactive oxygen species. Okay, and all these are which are causes which leads to aging. Reperfusion injury occurs when when the blood supply is restored. Let's say we're after a myocardial infarction, somebody who has had a heart attack, so the blood supply was stopped for some time, and when then reperfusion occurs, when the blood supply is restored, there can occur reperfusion injury, okay, which is again because of free radicals. So what happens is when the blood supply is again reduced, so there is increased activity of xanthine oxidase. So this xanthine oxidase, it converts the incoming oxygen from the blood to superoxide anions and hydrogen peroxide which can again bring about damage. And also the free radicals which are generated, it leads to the mitochondrial leakage is there. So the cytochromes from the mitochondria is released, which can again cause apoptosis or programmed cell death. Then we have is retinopathy of prematurity. Okay, so premature newborns which are there. Okay, so they require supplemental oxygen. So if the supplemental oxygen is given for a long time, then it can lead to again reactive oxygen species and damage the retinas. Okay, so these are important diseases which are seen with reactive oxygen species and free radicals. Now let us try and understand what antioxidants are and how it protects us against free radical damage. Okay, so antioxidants are basically substances which delay or inhibit substrate oxidation. Okay, so they act by donating electrons. So the problem was free radical was it was having an unpaired electron in its outermost orbit. So what antioxidants do? They donate their one electron. So this free radical, it has a paired electron in the outermost orbit and it becomes stabilized. Okay, so they donate their electron. Now these free radical antioxidants are also known as scavengers of free radicals. Okay, so they remove the free radical effects. That is why they are also called scavengers of free radicals. Now how do we classify antioxidants? They can be classified as acting against lipid peroxidation, in which they can be preventive antioxidants. Okay, they block the initial production of free radicals. For example, production of lipid free radical. Okay, so these antioxidants are catalase and glutathione peroxidase. Then we have chain breaking antioxidants. Okay, so this occurs when lipid peroxidation has already initiated. Now you want to break that chain. So the antioxidants which come into action are superoxide dismutase, vitamin E, uric acid. Okay. Then based on the location, whether it is present in the plasma, okay, the antioxidants are classified as beta carotene or precursor of vitamin A, okay, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, ceruloplasmin, transferrin, uric acid, okay, or present in the cell membrane, they are again vitamin E, okay, or it can be in intracellular antioxidants. Okay, for example, superoxide dismutase, catalase, glutathione peroxidase. So these are present inside the cell. This is present in the cell membrane, and this is present in the plasma. So based on the location, this is how they are classified. Then based on the nature of action, they can be either enzymatic antioxidants or they can be non-enzymatic antioxidants. So enzymatic ones are superoxide dismutase, catalase, glutathione peroxidase, glutathione reductase. The non-enzymatic ones are again, it can be either a nutrient antioxidant or a metabolic antioxidant. So the nutrient antioxidants are which we get in our diet. It's a nutrient like vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium. Okay, again it's a mineral. Metabolic antioxidants are glutathione, ceruloplasmin, transferrin, uric acid. Okay, so this is how antioxidants are classified. Okay, so basically they are classified. The major classification includes lipid peroxidation ones, they are preventive antioxidants and chain breaking antioxidants, and based on the nature and action, whether they are enzymatic antioxidants or non-enzymatic antioxidants. Okay. So let us see how antioxidants work. First, the superoxide dismutase. So superoxide dismutase basically converts superoxide to hydrogen peroxide. Okay, so we have a superoxide, the superoxide dismutase or SOD converts superoxide superoxides to hydrogen peroxides. Okay. Now we have mitochondrial superoxide dismutase or we have cytoplasmic superoxide dismutase. So the mitochondrial one requires manganese as coenzyme, whereas the cytoplasmic one requires zinc, copper, zinc as coenzymes. Now if there is a genetic defect of superoxide dismutase, it is associated with diseases like ALS or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or COPD. Okay. Now the superoxide anions, okay, they are converted to hydrogen peroxide. So this hydrogen peroxide is again acted upon by catalase. So the catalase converts hydrogen peroxide to water and oxygen. Okay, so superoxide dismutase and catalase, they act in tandem and remove the free radicals. Okay. The catalase also, this same property is also utilized for identification of bacteria. Okay, so bacteria which have catalase, they are known as catalase positive bacteria. Okay. Glutathione peroxidase converts hydrogen peroxide to water. Same thing, hydrogen peroxide previously was acted upon by catalase. Now we also have glutathione peroxidase, which acts on hydrogen peroxide and converts it into water. Okay, so in the process, glutathione peroxidase utilizes glutathione. So the reduced glutathione is converted to an oxidized form of glutathione. Now this oxidized form of glutathione needs to be converted back to reduced form of glutathione so that it can be utilized again. So this conversion of oxidized glutathione to a reduced glutathione is brought about by the enzyme glutathione reductase. Okay, and this glutathione reductase is adding the hydrogen group, right? It's causing reduction. So this hydrogen is given by NADPH, and this NADPH donates the hydrogen and it gets converted to NADP. So the hydrogen which is donated is taken up by the oxidized glutathione and converted to a reduced form of glutathione. Now this NADPH comes from HMP shunt, and the enzyme which is required is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. Okay, so this is how the whole mechanism works. Next we have is vitamin E, which is also known as tocopherol. Now vitamin E is a fat soluble antioxidant vitamin. Okay, it is present in cell membranes. Okay, the action of vitamin E is it's a chain breaking action of lipid peroxidation. Okay. Now vitamin E is the most common vitamin E, or is the alpha tocopherol. Okay, it is also the most potent natural antioxidant. So the alpha tocopherol acts upon with the lipid peroxy radical, okay, and it forms a free radical itself. Now this vitamin E free radical, okay, combines with a lipid peroxy free radical and leads to formation of inactive products. So the vitamin E reacts with a lipid free radical. Okay, it can also react with other free radicals like superoxide, hydroxy free radicals, and singlet oxygen. Okay, so this is how vitamin E acts, and this is how it brings about chain breaking effect of free radicals. So if you remember, the initiation was, okay, the free radical was formed and lipid peroxy radical was formed. Now this lipid peroxy radical, after being initiated, this can undergo chain reaction. So you want to break this chain. So this breaking of chain is with the help of alpha tocopherol or vitamin E. So vitamin E reacts with this lipid peroxy radical and can lead to formation of inactive products. So this is why vitamin E is called a chain breaking action of lipid peroxidation. Next is vitamin C, which also helps the vitamin E. Okay, so vitamin C is a water soluble antioxidant. Vitamin E was lipid soluble antioxidant. Now vitamin C helps in regeneration of reduced vitamin E and lipid peroxidation. Okay, so in the previous slide we had the lipid peroxy radical. Okay, so which was converted to a stabilized product or inactive product. In the process, vitamin E, which was reduced form, was converted to an oxidized form. Okay, so lipid free radical was getting converted to an inactive product. So in the process, vitamin E, which was reduced, becomes oxidized. Now this vitamin E again needs to be reduced so that it can bring about again the same action. Now for this you require vitamin C. So vitamin C, a reduced form of vitamin C, becomes oxidized. Okay, so a reduced vitamin C helps the oxidized vitamin E to become reduced. Okay, so when vitamin C, which was reduced, has become oxidized, this also needs to be converted back to reduced form. Now this occurs with the help of glutathione. So glutathione helps to convert vitamin C to reduced form and itself becomes oxidized. So we have is glutathione, which is reduced, is utilized and becomes again oxidized. Now we need to convert again the oxidized form of glutathione to reduced form. Now this is with the help of NADPH, and now we all know that NADPH source is HMP shunt. Okay, so this is the whole cascade which is working in tandem, okay, to keep the lipid peroxidation from recurring again and again. Okay, to break the chain of lipid peroxidation, we require vitamin E, we require vitamin C, we require glutathione, and we require NADPH. Okay, this is how beautifully our body works. Next we have carotenoids. Okay, most commonly is again beta carotene is the most important one and naturally occurring one. It functions along with vitamin C and vitamin E. Okay, so they basically act against singlet oxygen. Okay, so this is again a naturally occurring antioxidant. We also have mineral, which is selenium. Okay, so selenium is basically acts as a prosthetic group which is present in glutathione peroxidase. Okay, so we have the enzyme glutathione peroxidase, okay, which utilizes glutathione. So this glutathione peroxidase, which converts your reduced glutathione into oxidized glutathione. So this glutathione peroxidase functions with the help of a coenzyme, which is nothing else but selenium. Okay, so it is a part of, it's a coenzyme of a prosthetic group of glutathione peroxidase, and that is how it functions. Now it is a preventive antioxidant. Thus, it reduces the work of chain-breaking antioxidants like vitamin E. Now, if you look at the lipid peroxidation, so lipid peroxidation, glutathione peroxidase is the preventive antioxidant. Okay, so preventive antioxidant is, it is when the free radicals are not getting formed. Okay, it prevents the formation of free radicals. Okay, so if the action of glutathione peroxidase is good, then chain breaking action becomes reduced. So in other words, if the selenium has sparing effect on vitamin E. Okay, because if this is functioning well, so this is a preventive function. Okay, so free radicals generated is less. So the work of vitamin E, which is chain breaking, automatically reduces. So this is why it is known as selenium has a sparing effect on vitamin E. Okay. Lastly, we have is transition metals. So transition metals like iron, copper, nickel, iron, cobalt. So these reacts with molecular oxygen to form as hydroxyl free radical. Okay, so when we have binding molecules like ceruloplasmin, which binds with copper, iron, transferrin, which binds with iron. So we do not have these free metals, these metals which are free to react with oxygen. And when they do not react, when they are not free, less amount of metals are reacting with oxygen, less amount of free radicals are getting generated, mainly hydroxyl free radical. So this was all in a nutshell about free radicals and antioxidants. I hope you have understood. So if you have understood, please subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you very much. I will see you all with the next lecture. Thank you.